My name is Rochelle P. Lawson, and I am 31 years old. We were sitting in a car, pulling up to a glass and steel building downtown, the kind with valet parking and a lobby that smells like money, when my boyfriend glanced at me in the rearview mirror and said, almost casually, "Try not to embarrass me. These people are way above your level." He didn't say it jokingly. There was no smile, no wink, no softening tone. Just a statement, delivered like a fact he assumed I already understood. I laughed it off because that's what I always did. "I'll try," I said, half sarcastic, half used to it. We'd been together a little over 2 years. He worked in marketing, very image-focused, very aware of which rooms mattered and which people didn't. I worked in consulting, but I usually kept it vague because he liked to treat what I did as practical background noise, useful but not impressive. This meeting was apparently important, a private networking dinner with some of his mentors and connections. I wasn't even supposed to come originally. One of the guests canceled last minute, and suddenly I was useful as a +1. On the drive there, he corrected my posture, told me not to talk about normal stuff, warned me not to mention where I grew up because it came off small. When I asked what was safe to talk about, he sighed like I was already exhausting him. "Just listen more than you speak," he said, "and please don't make it about you." We walked inside and I could feel him tense up beside me. His hand was stiff in mine, his smile already rehearsed. He looked like someone stepping onto a stage, not into a room. The host stepped forward to greet us. He looked at my boyfriend first, nodded politely, then his eyes landed on me, and his entire face changed. "Rochelle," he said, blinking, "is that really you?" I felt my boyfriend's fingers tighten around my wrist. The color drained from his face so fast it was almost impressive. He looked from the host to me and back again, and for the first time since I'd known him, he didn't say a word. The host laughed, that warm, confident laugh people get when they're genuinely happy to see someone. He stepped closer and shook my hand with both of his. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said. "It's been, 5 years?" My boyfriend finally found his voice. You two know each other?" he asked, and there was an edge to it already, like he didn't like the answer forming. "Know each other?" The host chuckled. "Rochelle practically saved our company back then." I felt my boyfriend's hand slip out of mine. The lobby suddenly felt very quiet. The lobby didn't actually get quieter. People were still talking. Glasses clinked somewhere behind us. Shoes clicked across marble. But for me, everything narrowed to the way my boyfriend stood frozen beside me, like the script he'd rehearsed in his head had just been erased. "Saved your company?" he repeated, forcing a laugh that didn't quite land. "That sounds dramatic." The host smiled, still holding my hand a second longer than necessary. "Dramatic is one word for it," he said easily. "Expensive is another." He finally released me and gestured toward the private dining room. "Come on in. Everyone's already asking where I disappeared to. And Rochelle, it's genuinely good to see you standing on the right side of the table again." That last part made my boyfriend flinch. Not visibly, but I felt it in the way his shoulder tightened when we started walking. Inside, the room opened up into polished wood, low lighting, and conversations that sounded important without ever quite saying anything. Heads turned as we entered. My boyfriend straightened his posture immediately, slipping into performance mode. His hand found the small of my back, more possessive than affectionate, like he needed to reassert where I belonged. As we sat down, he leaned in close. "Just so you know," he muttered, smile fixed, "this is not the place for whatever story you think you're about to tell." I looked at him and realized something unsettling. He wasn't worried about me embarrassing him anymore. He was worried about losing control. Dinner started the way these things always do. Expensive wine, overly precise job descriptions that somehow never explained what anyone actually did. A lot of nodding. A lot of interesting and absolutely. My boyfriend slid right into his element, laughing at the right moments, touching my arm when he wanted to look united, then subtly shifting his chair an inch away when he didn't. Every time someone asked me a question, he jumped in first. "So Rochelle does consulting," he said at one point, smiling tightly. "Very technical stuff, mostly back-end." I raised an eyebrow, but didn't correct him. The host noticed. I could tell. He kept glancing at me with an amused, knowing look, like he was watching a reveal happen in slow motion. Halfway through the first course, someone across the table asked, "So how did you two meet?" My boyfriend answered instantly, "Through friends, very casual." The host chuckled into his glass. "That's not how I met Rochelle." Every head turned toward him. My boyfriend froze, completely still. I could see the calculation happening behind his eyes, trying to decide whether to laugh it off or shut it down. "Oh?" someone said. How did you meet? The host leaned back in his chair, relaxed, clearly enjoying himself. Rochelle was consulting for us during let's call it a sensitive transition. Big acquisition, high risk, a lot of egos in the room. I saw my boyfriend's jaw tighten. She was young, the host continued, glancing at me. But she was the only one in the room willing to tell us the truth when everyone else was too scared to. That earned a few raised eyebrows. What truth? Someone asked. That we were about to lose 8 figures if we didn't kill the deal, he said casually. Board didn't want to hear it. Lawyers danced around it. Rochelle walked in, laid it out, and backed it with data none of us had bothered to look at. My boyfriend turned to me sharply. You never told me this. I shrugged. You never asked. A few people laughed softly, not at him, at the situation. The host smiled at my boyfriend, still polite. She saved us a lot of money, he said, and a few careers. There was a pause. My boyfriend forced a laugh. Well, she's very modest. But his voice had changed. For the first time that night, he wasn't managing the room. He was reacting to it. He barely touched his food after that. He nodded when spoken to, smiled when someone looked his way, but I could see the tension in his jaw, the way every compliment directed at me landed on him like a small personal insult. So, Rochelle, a woman across the table said, swirling her wine, are you still consulting independently? Before I could answer, my boyfriend cut in. She keeps busy, nothing too crazy. The host didn't miss a beat. Independent, yes. Selective, too. He looked at me. You turned us down twice after that deal. A quiet ripple moved through the table. My boyfriend's smile twitched. You turned them down? I met his eyes. Didn't fit my schedule. That wasn't the answer he wanted. He leaned closer, voice low and sharp. Since when do you turn down opportunities like this? Since I didn't need them, I replied just as quietly. The rest of the table had moved on, but he stayed stuck on that sentence. I could almost hear him recalculating every joke he'd ever made about me being comfortable instead of ambitious. The host raised his glass. To Rochelle, he said, one of the smartest people in the room who never feels the need to prove it. Glasses clinked. My boyfriend hesitated, then raised his last. He didn't look at me. After the toast, the questions didn't stop. They just changed direction. They stopped flowing through him and started landing on me. Someone asked how long I'd been consulting privately. Another wanted to know what kinds of clients I preferred. A third asked if I ever missed being in-house. I answered simply, honestly, without embellishment. I didn't perform. I didn't posture. I didn't need to. The room wasn't asking me to impress it. It was recognizing something my boyfriend had spent 2 years sanding down. He tried to recover. I could see it in the way he leaned forward, the way his voice got a half step louder, the way he started reframing my answers in real time. She's being modest, he said again. Rochelle likes to downplay things. He smiled at the table like he was translating me into something more palatable. Michael watched this with quiet amusement. Modest is one word, he said. Precise is another. Then he turned to me. You always hated meetings that could have been emails. That got a real laugh from the table. Not polite laughter. Familiar laughter. The kind that comes from shared memory. My boyfriend exhaled sharply through his nose. Someone asked him how we'd decided to come tonight. He opened his mouth, then closed it. It was last minute, he said. A spot opened up. Michael nodded. Lucky timing. Then to me, you didn't tell me you were in town. I didn't know I was coming until today, I said. My boyfriend glanced at me, irritation flashing. He leaned in and whispered, You're enjoying this. I met his eyes. I'm just being myself. He straightened, jaw set. This isn't the place. For what? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. Dinner moved on, but the shift stayed. He stopped interrupting, stopped reframing. He leaned back, listening now, watching the room engage with me in ways he hadn't prepared for. Each time someone asked for my opinion, his smile tightened. Each time I spoke, he looked smaller. Not diminished, just revealed. When dessert arrived, he excused himself to take a call. He stood near the bar, back turned, phone pressed to his ear, nodding too much. When he returned, he didn't sit right away. He leaned down, voice controlled and furious. You made me look stupid. I met his gaze. I didn't say anything untrue. That's not the point, he snapped. You should have warned me. Warned you about what? I asked. That I'm not who you pretend I am? His mouth opened, closed. He straightened as someone glanced our way, the smile snapping back into place, but his hand shook when he picked up his glass. From there, the rest of the dinner felt like pressure building under glass. He stayed quiet, nodding when spoken to, laughing half a beat too late. I caught him staring at my hands once, like he was trying to reconcile them with the version of me he'd been carrying around. Michael seemed to enjoy himself more by the minute. "So what are you working on now?" he asked me casually. "Advising a few private clients," I said. "Some restructuring, some exits." "Still turning down boards?" he asked. "Still," I said. That earned another ripple. My boyfriend exhaled sharply. An older man leaned forward. "We've been trying to bring someone in with your background," he said. "Quiet operators are hard to find." My boyfriend perked up instantly. "She's very loyal," he said quickly, "sometimes to a fault." I looked at him. "Loyal to what?" He blinked. "To people, commitments." Michael tilted his head. "Funny," he said. "I always thought Rochelle was loyal to the truth, even when it made people uncomfortable." The table went quiet again. Not awkward, attentive. I realized then what this night had become. He brought me here to blend into the background. Instead, I was becoming context he hadn't prepared for. After dessert, people stood, exchanging cards, making plans that would never happen. My boyfriend pulled me aside near the bar, gripped tight on my arm. "Why didn't you ever tell me any of this?" he demanded under his breath. "I didn't hide it," I said. "I just didn't shrink it for you." His eyes flashed. "I made you sound relatable." I nodded slowly. "You made me sound smaller." He glanced around, checking who might be watching. "You're being dramatic." I looked past him at Michael, deep in conversation, unconcerned. And it clicked. I wasn't invited to stand beside him tonight. I was invited to stay beneath him. For the first time in a long while, I knew exactly how done I was. We didn't leave together right away. He lingered, forcing smiles, saying the right goodbyes to the right people, laughing a little too brightly, like nothing had gone wrong. I stood a few steps behind him, suddenly invisible again, but this time by choice. Michael caught my eye as people filtered out. "You ever want to grab coffee?" he said. "No agenda, just talk." I nodded. "I'd like that." I felt my boyfriend stiffen. He heard it. I know he did. The car ride home was silent for the first 10 minutes. No music, no small talk. Just the low hum of the city at night and the sound of tires on pavement. Finally, he broke. "I don't understand why you let them think you're some kind of big deal," he said, eyes fixed on the road. I turned to him. "I didn't let them think anything." He scoffed. "You knew exactly what you were doing." "No," I said calmly. "You're the one who assumed I'd embarrass you." He slammed his hand lightly against the steering wheel. "Because you never act like that. You downplay everything. You made me look like an idiot for believing you." That one landed differently. "I didn't make you believe anything," I said. "You believed what was convenient." He laughed, sharp and bitter. "Oh, please, don't turn this into some moral lecture. This was supposed to be my night." I looked out the window at the lights passing by. "I wasn't trying to fit into your world," I said. "I thought we were building one together." He pulled into the driveway and cut the engine. The silence that followed was heavier than the one before. He stared straight ahead. So what? Now I'm the villain. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing rise up to defend us anymore. "No," I said. "You're just not the person I thought you were." He turned toward me, eyes flashing. "You're overreacting." That was the moment everything ended for me. Not the dinner, not the toast, not the comparisons. It was the certainty in his voice that he truly believed he'd done nothing wrong, and worse, that he didn't want to. I opened the door and stepped out. "We'll talk tomorrow," I said. But I already knew there wasn't going to be a tomorrow for us. We didn't talk the next day or the day after that. He treated the silence like a strategy, like if he waited long enough, I'd come back apologizing for misreading things. That was always how it went. I'd smooth it over, make it easy, shrink myself back down to the version he was comfortable standing next to. Something in me had gone quiet instead. On the third day, he cornered me in the kitchen while I was making coffee, arms crossed, tone sharp. "So what, you're just punishing me now?" I didn't look up. "I'm just thinking." "About what?" "How I embarrassed you." I almost laughed. "You didn't embarrass me. You revealed yourself." His face hardened. I was protecting my image. "That's the problem," I replied. "You were protecting yourself from me." He scoffed. "You're acting like I committed some huge crime." "No," I said calmly. "You just showed me how you see me." He stepped closer. "I see you as someone who should have told me the truth." "You never wanted the truth," I said. "You wanted me manageable." That hit. I could tell by the way his mouth tightened. "You think you're better than me now?" he snapped. I shook my head. "No, I think I don't belong here anymore." He laughed, disbelieving. "You're seriously going to throw this away over one dinner?" "It wasn't the dinner," I said. "It was the comment in the car. It was every warning not to embarrass you. Every joke, every correction." He stared at me like I was speaking another language. You're being dramatic. That word sealed it. I set my coffee down, grabbed my keys, and said, I'm staying with a friend for a bit. His confidence cracked for the first time. Wait, what? You can't just leave. I met his eyes, calm and detached. I already did. You just didn't notice. And when I closed the door behind me, I didn't feel angry. I felt light. Staying at my friend's place gave me something I hadn't had in a long time. Distance without pressure. No commentary, no corrections, no one watching my tone to see if it needed adjusting. The first night, I slept harder than I had in months, not because I was exhausted, but because my body finally understood it wasn't on alert anymore. He texted the next morning like nothing fundamental had changed. Logistics wrapped in half apologies that weren't really apologies. I think we both said things. This feels blown out of proportion. We should talk like adults. What he never said was, I'm sorry. What he never asked was, are you okay? I didn't respond. Silence wasn't a tactic, it was a boundary. On the fourth day, he asked to meet. Neutral ground. A coffee shop. Public enough to keep things contained. I agreed because I wanted to hear him when there wasn't an audience or a script to hide behind. He arrived dressed like he was going to an interview. Perfect hair, neutral colors, controlled expression. It hit me then. This wasn't about us. It was about regaining footing, about restoring the image he felt had slipped. I've been thinking, he said, folding his hands like this was a negotiation. I might have underestimated you, and maybe you enjoyed proving a point. I waited. But, he continued, you also put me in an impossible position. You know how important perception is in my world. There it was again. My world. You didn't trust me, I said. He frowned. I trusted you not to blindside me. I trusted you to respect me, I replied. We both lost. He leaned back, arms crossed. So what, you want me to apologize for being ambitious? No, I said calmly. I wanted you to stop being ashamed of me. His mouth opened, then closed. He didn't expect that answer. That's not fair, he said. I was protecting us. You were protecting upward, I corrected. I was disposable. His eyes hardened. You're rewriting this to make me the villain. This isn't a rewrite, I said. It's the first time I'm not editing it for you. He stared at me, then tried the line he probably thought would bring me back. If you walk away now, you're giving up on something that could be really good. I stood, picked up my jacket. No, I'm giving up on being tolerated. I left before he could say anything else. He didn't follow. I moved my things out a week later. He wasn't there. He said he had meetings all day. It felt intentional. Avoid the awkwardness without acknowledging the finality. I packed quietly, efficiently, no dramatics, no lingering. It was strange how little there actually was once I separated what was mine from what was ours. Turns out we hadn't built much together at all. He texted while I was loading the last box. I don't think you're making the right choice. I stared at the message longer than necessary, then replied once. I finally am. That night, he posted a carefully worded caption about outgrowing situations and choosing alignment. No mention of me. Just vague enough to make people ask questions. Just flattering enough to make him the protagonist. Mutual friends reached out. Some curious, some sympathetic. One message stood out from someone who'd been at the dinner. Didn't realize who you were until after. For what it's worth, you handled yourself with a lot of class. Weeks passed. The quiet didn't feel lonely. It felt honest. No corrections, no warnings, no shrinking. I ran into Michael again by coincidence. We grabbed coffee, talked about work, life, what comes next. At one point, he smiled and said, You seem lighter. I stopped carrying something that wasn't mine, I said. He reached out one last time a month later. Just a sentence. I hope you find someone who fits you. I didn't reply. For the first time, I already had. A few months passed without anything dramatic happening, and that was the strangest part. No surprise messages, no late-night apologies, no angry posts aimed vaguely in my direction. Just distance settling into permanence, the kind that doesn't announce itself, but slowly becomes real. Life didn't transform overnight. There was no montage where everything suddenly sparkled. What changed instead was quieter and more lasting. I stopped rehearsing conversations in my head before having them. I stopped scanning rooms for approval. I stopped adjusting my tone so no one could accuse me of being too much or out of place. Mornings became easier. Evenings felt longer. The silence in my apartment wasn't empty. It was neutral, honest. A mutual friend mentioned him in passing one night, casually, like an update that no longer carried weight. Apparently, he was still telling people his version of the dinner, that I blindsided him, that I enjoyed humiliating him, that I'd changed. I didn't correct it. Anyone who needed the truth would eventually notice the pattern on their own. People always do. What stayed with me wasn't anger, it was clarity. I realized I hadn't left because of one sentence in the car or one comment at dinner. I left because of how easily he'd said it, because of how comfortable he was believing I should stay smaller so he could feel secure, because he needed me beneath him to feel tall. I ran into him once more, unexpectedly, weeks later. Not a planned meeting, just the two of us crossing paths in a place we used to go together. He looked surprised. I didn't. We exchanged polite hellos, nothing more. He seemed unsettled by how little there was left between us. I wasn't. Later that night, I thought about the warning he'd given me in the car. Try not to embarrass me. These people are way above your level. It hadn't been an insult. It had been a confession. He'd told me exactly how he saw me. It just took one room, one dinner, one moment of exposure for me to finally listen. Here's what I learned. Love doesn't ask you to make yourself smaller so someone else can feel important. It doesn't warn you not to embarrass it. It doesn't flinch when a room recognizes your worth. And it certainly doesn't need you quiet to survive. Walking away wasn't loud. It wasn't vengeful. It didn't come with speeches or ultimatums. It came with silence. With choosing myself without explaining why. And that silence did what no argument ever could. It ended the story cleanly. If someone ever tells you you're below their level, believe them. Not because it's true, but because it tells you everything about where they plan to keep you. And once you see that, the only real power move left is to leave without shrinking, without shouting, without asking permission.